Hey guys, welcome to Calm History. Tonight we're heading deep into the dust-choked, sun-scorched world of the American frontier, right around the year 1873. You're not a gunslinger or an outlaw this time. Nope, tonight you're a cowboy. A tired, saddle-sore, dust-covered cowboy who just woke up somewhere near the Pecos River. It's barely dawn. The air is dry, the fire's smoldering, and your jaw? Your jaw feels like it's been kicked by a mule with a grudge. Hey, if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. I'm curious where you're listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Now find a cozy spot. Take a slow, deep breath, and let your body sink into comfort as we journey back in time together. Congratulations. There's a sharp, pulsing ache behind your right cheekbone. Your molar's gone rogue, and it's not playing nice. You try to ignore it at first. You've been kicked, trampled, bitten by a mule once, and chased by a widow for flirting with her daughter. But this pain? This is different. It's intimate. It's invasive. It demands your attention. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and the local time in the comments. I always love seeing where and when folks are tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit up slowly, groaning more out of habit than hope, and touch your cheek. It's hot. Swollen. You don't need a mirror, you can feel the bulge. And it's not just swollen, it's angry. Your tongue pokes at the molar like a curious child touching a wasp's nest. Mistake. The jolt of pain shoots through your skull like a bullet made of lightning. You taste something bitter and metallic, blood. The others are still snoring. Jesse's got his hat pulled over his face, and Hank is hugging a rifle like it's a long-lost lover. The fire crackles, but no one stirs. You stumble over to the wagon and find a tin cup. The canteen water's warm and stale, but you swish it around anyway. You spit it out in a sharp stream, and watch a swirl of pink spiral into the dirt. You mutter something the local preacher wouldn't appreciate. It's only daybreak, and you already know today is going to be a long one. The tooth has been aching for a while now, but this morning is different. This morning, it feels personal. Like it's plotting your downfall. There's a theory some old-timers passed around that a toothache was the devil trying to whisper into your skull. You're starting to think they might have been onto something. You try chewing a piece of dried apple left over from last night's rations. Big mistake. You might as well have taken a hammer to your jaw. You spit the half-chewed mess into the fire, where it sizzles and blackens, not unlike your mood. Now let's pause and be clear. In 1873, the term dentist wasn't exactly common in cowboy country. Most oral surgery was performed by the town barber, the blacksmith, or whoever happened to own a pair of pliers and a strong stomach. Dentistry was technically a profession, sure, but the odds of finding a trained one out here on the frontier were about as good as finding a goose that laid silver bullets. Mainstream historians agree this was a brutal time for oral health, but there's still debate on just how common cavities were in the cowboy diet. Some scholars argue the high meat and low sugar intake helped limit decay. Others say the lack of dental hygiene and scurvy-like deficiencies made things worse. Either way, if you lived long enough, chances are something in your mouth would eventually rebel. You rub your jaw again, almost tenderly, as if the molar will take pity on you. It doesn't. The camp slowly wakes up around you. Someone coughs. Someone else curses at the cold. The smell of yesterday's beans still lingers like a ghost you can't exorcise. Cookie, your camp cook and resident philosopher, emerges from under his blanket and gives you a once-over. You look like you swallowed a toad that's trying to claw its way back out, he says, deadpan, as he starts rekindling the fire. You don't laugh. Smiling hurts. You ain't touched that tooth yet? He adds, tossing kindling onto the embers. You shake your head. It's hard to admit it, but you're scared. You'd rather face a stampede than someone waving rusty forceps near your mouth. Cookie snorts. Best get it looked at. Or yanked. Or both. Otherwise, it's gonna rot you from the inside out. Seen it happen. Happened to Lester once. His tooth swelled up, jaw locked shut. Died staring at the sky like he saw angels punching each other. You groan. You don't need the mental imagery. But Cookie's not wrong. You glance toward the rising sun. Somewhere out there, maybe 100 miles or more, there's a town. Maybe they've got a barber. Maybe they've got whiskey strong enough to make this bearable. Maybe they've got a man crazy enough to stick his fingers in your mouth and pull the devil out by its root. The coffee starts boiling. Cookie passes you a cup, black as sin and twice as bitter. You cradle it in both hands, breathing in the acrid steam. Every sip scalds your throat, but at least it makes your jaw pain feel slightly less immediate. You've got a decision to make. You can't keep living with this pain. But the cure might just kill you quicker than the tooth. The men start packing up camp, unaware that your day began with a war raging just behind your cheekbone. The horses snort. Saddles creak. The trail stretches ahead, full of dust, heat, and one incredibly long ride. And you? You tuck the pain deep down and mount up. Because on the frontier, you don't get to be comfortable. You just get to serve. The sun's barely a fist above the horizon as your horse crunches over dry grass and sand, and your jaw throbs in rhythm with each hoofbeat. Every jolt rattles that molar like a tiny drum of pain, echoing deep into your skull. You try to keep your teeth unclenched, but it's like telling a thunderstorm to quiet down. You've got about as much control. Cookie's voice drifts from behind you. Try rinsing it with whiskey, he calls. Burn the rot clean out. You grunt something unintelligible and reach into your saddlebag. You've got half a flask left, sour, strong, and stolen from a poker game last week. You take a swig and swish it around your mouth. At first, there's numbness. Then heat. Then fire. And just when you think it can't get worse, it finds that nerve. You lurch in the saddle, gagging slightly, and spit the liquor out in a sharp spray. It arcs through the air like an exorcism, landing on the side of a saguaro cactus. Sweet Mary, you whisper, blinking back tears. You probably just sterilized your entire face, but the tooth is still there, mocking you. Got blood? Cookie asks from beside his meal. You nod. He shrugs. Means it's working. That's cowboy logic for you. Now, in the grand tale of 19th century dental care, or lack thereof, it's worth knowing that even then, alcohol wasn't just a painkiller. It was considered medicine, disinfectant, and occasionally breakfast. Historians agree that whiskey played a major role in field medicine. Whether it helped, or just made people too drunk to care is still up for debate. Back in 1873, there were no mouthwashes, no hygienists, and certainly no floss. You had your toothbrush, maybe, usually made of bone or wood and pig hair if you were lucky, and if you were unlucky, you used a twig or chewed sagebrush. Most folks just rinsed with whatever they had on hand, salt water, vinegar, ashes, or, in truly desperate cases, their own urine. Yes, that's real. No, you don't try that. You steady yourself in the saddle, one hand cupped against your face as if you can hold the pain back with skin and stubbornness. The rest of the crew doesn't notice. They're too busy watching the trail ahead. But you feel like screaming. Or sobbing. Or both. Instead, you spit again. It's red this time. Not pink. Not faint. Red, like something's opened up inside you. It hits the dry dirt with a splat, and steams slightly in the morning sun. You mutter another prayer to no one in particular, and keep riding. The trail winds between boulders and over cracked riverbeds. Your horse knows the way, you just have to stay upright. Every so often, you try to distract yourself, count fence posts, name the clouds, remember the lyrics to that terrible ballad you heard in Laredo. But the pain is always there. Like a knife you swallowed sideways. You reach up again and touch your cheek. Still hot. Still swollen. And now it's stiffening. You wonder how much longer you've got before it spreads, before it locks your jaw or infects your blood. You've seen it before. One cowboy's face swelled so bad his eyes shut completely. Another's tongue swelled until he couldn't breathe. There was a fella up in Abilene who just fell over one day. Dead. Doc said it was. Toxic poisoning of the mouth. Whatever that meant. You don't want to end up like that. You pull up beside Cookie. Nearest town? Maybe a day. Maybe two, he says. Weather holds, horses hold, and you don't fall off dead. Comforting. You ride on in silence, the sun climbing higher, the land shimmering with heat. A few vultures circle in the distance. You hope they're not circling for you. Around noon you stop for water. The river's low and muddy, but beggars can't be picky. You kneel by the edge and splash some into your mouth. Mistake. The cold water hits the inflamed nerve like a steel spike. You scream, not loud, not heroic. It's more like a startled goat noise. The men turn, eyebrows raised. You stand quickly, wiping your mouth, pretending it didn't happen. But Cookie knows. He just shakes his head. Should have used the whiskey, he mutters. You climb back into the saddle, jaw clenched now out of habit, and keep going. Somewhere. Around mid-afternoon, the wind kicks up and the dust begins to fly. It gets in your eyes, your ears, and worst of all, your mouth. It coats your tongue, your lips, and that cursed tooth. You want to scream again. Instead, you squint at the horizon. There. A blur. A shimmer. Maybe it's a town. Maybe just heat. But you've got no choice. You aim your horse toward it like a man chasing hope on horseback. Your jaw pulses in time with your heartbeat. The dust grits between your teeth. The whiskey didn't work. The water made it worse. You're running out of options, and fast. You close your eyes for a moment, and imagine what it must have been like before this. When the tooth was healthy. When you could chew. When you could laugh without pain. It feels like a lifetime ago. You open your eyes again. The land hasn't changed. Still dry. Still brutal. Still chewing you up from the inside out. And the tooth? Still there. Still winning. The sun slides lower in the sky as the shadows stretch long over the land, and your tooth is now less a part of your body and more like a demon taking up residence behind your cheekbone. It throbs like a second heart, one fueled by spite and probably beans. Your grip on the reins tightens, not because of any threat on the trail, but because the only thing keeping you from tearing your own jaw off is sheer, stupid willpower. Cookie, you rasp, voice gravelly. What's in the wagon? He squints up from his saddle. Flour. Salt. Tools. Why? You got any tobacco? He chuckles. You don't smoke. I don't care, you say. I'm not looking for a hobby. I'm looking for a miracle. A few minutes later, you're perched awkwardly on a crate near the chuck wagon, a wad of chewed tobacco plastered against your infected tooth like a spit-soaked compress of regret. Cookie insisted this was the old cowpoke remedy. Kills the pain, kills the germs, he said with a wink. Might kill your taste buds too, but that's a sacrifice worth making. It tastes like burnt leather rolled in horse sweat. And it burns. Not just a little. Not like whiskey. This is more like fire ants in your gums with tiny pitchforks. You suck in air through clenched teeth, fighting the urge to scream. Means it's working. Cookie offers again. You spit a string of brown goo into the dust. You're fairly certain your dignity came out with it. Now, here's your fun historical tidbit for the night. Chewing tobacco was a staple on the frontier. Not just for habit, but for hygiene. In fact, some cowboys believed the juices helped prevent tooth rot. They were wrong, of course, but it gave them something to believe in while their gums slowly surrendered to the void. Historians still argue whether chewing tobacco delayed decay or accelerated it with all the grit and sugar added to the leaves. Either way, no one walked away with pearly whites. You sit there for a while, letting the sting seep deeper, hoping that by some miracle, the pain will subside. It doesn't. Try this, Cookie says, tossing you a small blackened pouch. Charcoal? Ground up from the campfire. Mix it with a little spit and hold it in place. Cleans the mouth. Draws out the poison. You glare at him. You sure you ain't just making this up as you go? Would it matter? It wouldn't. You smear the charcoal paste into your mouth like some kind of cursed face paint, and brace for whatever comes next. For a moment, there's nothing. Then there's everything. It's gritty, it's bitter, and somehow it finds its way into the raw pockets of your gums like it's got a map. You gag. You swear. You start laughing, but that hurts too much, so you end up somewhere between a wheeze and a whimper. The other cowboys pretend not to notice. You try to distract yourself again. Think of the sky. Think of anything not inside your skull. You watch a hawk circle overhead. You count how many clouds look vaguely like things that won't make you cry. Eventually, Cookie claps you on the back. Still breathing. That's something. The sun begins to dip behind a jagged ridge of rock, painting the sky in streaks of purple and gold. The camp settles in for the night. Fire crackles. Beans bubble. A harmonica groans in the distance, playing a song that sounds suspiciously like it hates you personally. You sit near the fire with your jaw in your hands, unable to chew dinner. You sip broth instead, each swallow a gamble. Sometimes it goes down fine. Sometimes it hits that tooth just so, and you're back to contemplating if a .22 caliber and a mirror might solve your problems quicker. Across the flames, Hank, older than dust and twice as crusty, leans back on his saddle and mutters, "Shoulda gone to see Doc Humphreys before we left. Man's got a collection of teeth in a jar. Pulls them out clean most times." "Most?" you ask. "Except when he's drunk." "Which is?" "Usually." "Great." You toss another twig into the fire and stare at the sparks dancing upward. Your cheek feels like it's glowing from within, like you're roasting from the inside out. Someone hands you a tin cup. More whiskey. You raise it in mock toast and sip carefully. "Here's to frontier medicine," you mutter. "Mostly fire, spit, and lies." That gets a chuckle. Later, wrapped in your blanket under the stars, you try to sleep. But the pain pulses with every heartbeat. The night is full of soft howls and creaking wood, but none of it drowns out the throb in your skull. You roll over, cheek pressed into your saddlebag. It helps for 5 seconds. Then it hurts again. There's a reason no one writes love songs about toothaches. There's a reason cowboys didn't smile much in old photos. Most of them were missing teeth, or too busy hiding the pain behind a tight-lipped scowl. You shift again. Stare at the stars. Try to imagine a world where your mouth doesn't feel like it's full of broken glass and brimstone. You can't. Not tonight. Not with this tooth. Hey guys. How's your day going? If you're living fully in each moment, drop a 1 as a sign of strength and presence. But if today feels like a tough journey, type 2, because you're not alone. I'm right here with you, walking this path together. Peace isn't waiting at the end of the road, it's found in every brave step you take. Morning drags itself over the horizon like a reluctant mule, and you wake with your face pressed into something damp and warm. For a split second you think it's blood. That maybe the tooth finally gave up in the night, exploded out of your mouth, and spared you further suffering. But no. Just drool. Lots of it. And the molar? Still there. Still throbbing. Still the undisputed sheriff of Payne County. You sit up slowly, neck stiff, back sore, and mouth full of regret. The inside of your cheek feels chewed raw, like you've been grinding it in your sleep. You probably have. Some part of you hoped the pain might fade while you dreamed of rivers and apple pie. Instead, you dreamt you were being punched in the face by an invisible donkey named Regret. Repeatedly. Wagons ready. Cookie grunts, throwing a saddlebag into the back. Figure we make for Dry Creek. Might be a barber surgeon there. You raise an eyebrow. What now? Barber surgeon. Cuts hair, drains boils, pulls teeth. Sometimes all in one visit. You sigh. Sounds charming. Truth is, the barber surgeon was as close as most folks came to medical care out here. Barbers didn't just trim beards in the 19th century. They stitched wounds, set bones, and yes, pulled teeth. They were cheaper than doctors and, depending on the day, either more drunk or more friendly. Historians still argue whether their dual roles made them more practical, or just more dangerous. One hand held the clippers, the other, a bone saw. You mount your horse with effort. The saddle creaks. Your jaw screams. The trail winds through scrub and shale, the sun hot on your back before mid-morning. You chew nothing. Speak little. Swallow only when you have to. And then the wagon hits a rut. Your horse stumbles, your jaw clacks shut, and you let out a noise that's half coyote, half choir boy getting sucker punched by a hymn book. Still Hutton? Jesse calls from ahead. You can't even answer. You just glare and ride on. Around noon, the trail rises into a ridge and dips down toward what looks, miraculously, like a town. Dry Creek. A cluster of buildings barely clinging to each other for shade. One sign hangs sideways from rusted chains. Cut and cures barbering, bleeding, extraction. You dismount slowly, every motion calculated to avoid another jolt to your nerve. You tie your horse and push open the swinging door. The inside smells like a mix of old cigars, hair oil, and fear. A man with a walrus mustache stands behind a counter, sharpening something shiny. You the barber? You ask. He looks up, eyes gleaming. That's me. Name's Josiah. You need a trim or a yank? You point to your cheek. He whistles. Looks like it's trying to crawl out on its own. Can you fix it? Sure can. $1.50, or a silver dollar and a good story. You fumble through your coat pocket, pull out a tarnished coin. He eyes it, nods, then points to a battered chair in the corner with cracked leather and a suspicious red stain near the headrest. You ever done this before? You ask, settling in. He shrugs. Once or twice. That's not comforting. Josiah rolls up his sleeves. Now hold still. Gotta get a good grip on it. These frontier teeth don't come easy. He pulls out a pair of pliers. Not dental forceps, actual pliers. The kind used to twist barbed wire or yank nails from stubborn fence posts. He approaches with the same casual menace as a hangman checking the rope. Open wide, he says cheerfully. You do. Reluctantly. The metal touches your gum, cold, rusty, and you flinch. The pliers close with a click around the tooth. Josiah grunts. Gonna have to work it a bit. And work it he does. There's pressure. A popping sound. Something tears. Then pain, white-hot, flashing, blinding pain that rips up through your skull and ricochets off your spine. You grip the arms of the chair so hard you're surprised the wood doesn't splinter. You scream. No shame. Just raw, primal sound. The pliers slip. Josiah mutters a curse, wipes his brow, and goes back in. This time, he braces a boot on your shoulder. You can hear the other cowboys outside, pretending not to hear you scream like a dying goat. The second pull gets half the tooth. The third gets the rest. You slump in the chair, sweating, breath ragged, blood pooling in your mouth like you bit a coin purse. Josiah pats your shoulder. See? Easy peasy. You try to glare, but the swelling makes your expression look more like a confused raccoon. He hands you a wad of cloth. Bite down on this. Keep it in for an hour. Don't drink anything hot. And if you pass out, try to land face up. You stagger outside, jaw throbbing, mouth full of cotton and shame. The others nod, silent. Jesse hands you your canteen. You wave it away. The taste of iron and regret is all you'll be drinking for a while. You sit on the back of the wagon, legs dangling, head tilted like you're listening for distant thunder. But no, just the sound of your own heartbeat pounding in your swollen cheek. The bloody cloth is stuffed between your molars like a makeshift dam, already soaked through. The wind stirs the dust and sweat on your skin, but nothing cools the fire in your jaw. Josiah the barber surgeon returns to his porch with a glass of something brown and syrupy, probably homemade moonshine, possibly paint thinner. Come back if it festers, he calls cheerfully. Or if you grow a second head. That happens sometimes. You don't respond. Mostly because you can't. The right side of your face feels like it's been punched by a frying pan and filled with gravel. You taste copper. Bits of tooth still rattle around your tongue like ceramic crumbs. This was supposed to be the solution. And maybe it is. But it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like surviving a duel with your own mouth. The rest of the crew loads up supplies while you sit there, drooling blood onto your shirt like a proper frontier gentleman. You try to remember your name. You try to remember why you thought this was better than just letting the thing rot out on its own. And then he appears. Tall. Leather vest. Hat tilted low. A silver belt buckled that screams I tell stories for a living. He smells like cloves and bear fat. You look like a man in pain, he says. You manage a half nod. He sits beside you, opens a satchel, and pulls out a tiny glass bottle. The label is yellowed, curling at the edges. In faded black ink it reads, Dr. Livingston's Universal Nerve Dust, for toothache, grief, or hysteria. He holds it out. Try this. You squint at the label, at the stranger, at the bottle. What's in it? You mumble around the cotton. God's mercy and powdered bliss. You glance at Cookie, who raises a brow and shrugs. Could be opium. Could be sawdust. Worth a shot. You pour a pinch onto your tongue. Instantly bitter. Almost sweet. Then your lips go numb. Then your tongue. Then your ears. Your spine relaxes like a length of old rope. Your eyes lose focus, and suddenly you don't care about the blood, or the missing tooth, or Josiah's boot on your shoulder. You lean back and laugh softly. Not a normal laugh, more like a man who just discovered how clouds work. What was that? You whisper. The stranger smiles. Miracle powder. Mail order. Out of New York. Only costs $2, or one chicken and a good poem. You don't have either, but you do have a deep, dreamy sense that maybe, just maybe, you've made it through the worst of it. Now, historically speaking, miracle cures, like this were all the rage in 19th century America. From Dr. Kilmer's swamp root to Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup, which, fun fact, was about 65% morphine. The frontier was awash with powders, potions, and patent medicines. Some of them numbed pain. Some numbed you permanently. Historians still debate whether they helped or just delayed the inevitable. But people bought them because they offered hope, bottled and corked. You hand the bottle back, eyes half closed, jaw still screaming but quieter now. Like the pain has crawled into a corner and is just sulking. The stranger tips his hat. Ride safe. Don't let the coyotes nibble that gap. And with that, he vanishes around the corner, off to sell bliss to the next miserable soul. You climb back into the saddle with Cookie's help. The numbness lingers. Your reins feel slippery, though maybe that's just your fingers forgetting how to hold things. Dry Creek fades behind you. Ahead, only prairie. Horizon. And more dust. And inside your mouth? A void where once there was pain. It still aches, but it's a quieter thing now. A shadow, not a scream. You wonder if the miracle powder will wear off by nightfall. You hope it doesn't. The sun dips again, painting the sky in oranges and purples. You keep your mouth closed, breathing through your nose, trying to savor this brief, shaky peace. For now, the tooth is gone. But the trail? The trail never ends. You ride in a haze. Not the good kind of haze, like drifting off in a warm bath after a hard day's ride. No, this is the sort of fog that wraps around your brain like a damp blanket and whispers, you might have made it worse. The powdered miracle's fading. You can feel it, like the tide slipping out from under your boots. The throbbing in your jaw is creeping back, slow but steady. Every bounce of the saddle stirs it. Every gust of wind that hits your cheek feels like sandpaper on raw nerve. Cookie rides up beside you, chewing on a piece of grass like it's a fine Havana cigar. Tooth out? He asks, nodding at your puffy face. You grunt. That's the face of a man who knows pain, whiskey, and regret. All at once. You give him a sideways glance. What happens now? He shrugs. Now? Now we pray it don't fester. Ah, there it is again. That word. Fester. One of those words that doesn't even need explaining. It feels like what it means. Should I rest? Eat soft? You ask, more out of hope than belief. Rest ain't exactly part of the cattle schedule. Soft? Sure, if you find something soft out here that ain't full of sand, thorns, or judgment. And so you ride. But it's not long before you feel it. That unmistakable pressure building deep in the socket. Like your jaw is inflating from the inside. You touch your cheek again, and it's hot. Not warm, hot. As if your face has decided to start its own campfire. You start to worry. The tooth's gone, yes. But something's wrong. It's like the ghost of the tooth is still there, screaming louder than when it was real. You picture the root left behind, festering beneath the gum, planning its comeback. You remember Josiah's hands shaking slightly. That plier slipping once. Did he leave part of it in? It's a real possibility. And historically? Not rare. In the 1870s, extractions were more about force than finesse. Many a tooth was broken off, leaving a splintered root to rot inside the gum line. Infection followed. Fever. Abscess. Sometimes even death. Historians note that tooth infections were a non-trivial cause of mortality among settlers and soldiers alike. They didn't call it the silent killer because it was polite. They called it that because one day you had a sore jaw, and the next, you were planning your own funeral in fever dreams. And out here? No hospital. No antiseptic. Just grit, gut instinct, and a whole lot of luck. By evening, you feel it settle in, the fever. It starts in your neck, crawling slowly upward. Your spine aches. Your joints feel thick, like they're moving through syrup. You shiver in the heat and sweat in the breeze. The firelight at camp is too bright. The air smells too strong. Every sound grates. You all right? Jessie asks, poking at the beans with a wooden spoon. You nod, because saying no would require opening your mouth. Cookie watches you for a while. Then, without a word, he disappears behind the wagon. When he comes back, he's holding a bottle of something dark, a cloth, and a coil of rope. You blink. Don't worry, he says. I ain't gonna tie you down. Yet. He dips the cloth into the bottle and presses it to your temple. The coolness is a gift from heaven. Or maybe just a distraction. Had a buddy once, Cookie says, voice low. Got a bad pull like that. Tooth shattered, socket swelled up. He started seeing rabbits in his soup and talking to trees. Did he make it? You murmur. Cookie shrugs. Depends how you define make it. He eventually thought he was a tree. Comforting. You rest by the fire, legs stretched out, boots still on. You can't risk lying down. The pounding in your head gets worse when you're horizontal. So you sit there, mouth barely parted, cheeks flushed, eyes glassy. Someone hands you broth. You sip. Slowly. It tastes like warm regret and overcooked carrot. But at least it stays down. That night you dream. Not soft, pleasant dreams. No. These are dreams full of flames and black horses. Of yanking and tearing and pliers that whisper your name. You see Josiah again. Only now he has no face, just a smile. He keeps pulling teeth, and each one screams as it leaves your mouth. The campfire flickers behind him, except it's not fire, it's your molar, glowing like a coal. You wake up with a jerk, breathing hard. Your mouth is dry. Your gums are swollen. Your brain is fogged. You crawl from your blanket and spit into the dirt. Blood. Again. You stumble toward the edge of the wagon and look at the stars. They're spinning. The horizon rolls. And you realize, this ain't over. Not by a long shot. You're up before the sun, though up is a generous word. More like propped. Slumped against the side of the wagon, you look like a scarecrow someone forgot to finish, hat askew, shirt soaked with sweat, jawline glowing like you smuggled fire under your skin. The molar's gone, yes. But in its place, A pulsing void of pain. Hot. Deep. Alive. You run your tongue along the gum line and hit something sharp. Not like a tooth, but like something trying to be one. A splinter. Maybe a root. Maybe the remnant of Josiah's half-hearted heroism. It's still in there. And it's not staying quiet. You try to stand but wobble like a sapling in a storm. Your legs are weak. Your breath comes in puffs. When you blink, the world tilts 30 degrees to the left. Definitely fever. You stumble toward the campfire, where Cookie's already stirring beans in his cast iron pot like he's done every day since the dawn of Cowboy. He sees you coming and frowns. Color's all wrong, he mutters. You're looking like boiled ham left in the sun too long. You sit, or more accurately, fall onto a stump. Didn't get it all, you whisper. Cookie nods, unbothered. Figured that. You figured that? He shrugs. Josiah ain't exactly precise. More of a rip and hope kinda guy. You try to glare, but your eyelid doesn't quite cooperate. The fever's climbing. You feel it wrapping itself around your ribs like a python. He hands you a cup of water and mutters, "Drink." Slowly. You do. And for once, the cool liquid doesn't stab your nerves. That's either a good sign or a very bad one. Pain fading isn't always healing. Sometimes it's just nerve death. There's a grim silence in the camp. Jesse's tightening a saddle strap. Hank's swatting flies. No one says what they're thinking. You're becoming a problem. A slow, festering, can't chew his own beans liability. Should head out. Jesse finally mutters. Next town's got a real doc. Maybe even one with books. Yeah, Cookie says. Or at least one who knows what he's not qualified to touch. You don't argue. You can't. You just mount up again, barely. Cookie has to boost you like a sack of old potatoes. And the ride? Misery. Every bump sends tremors through your spine and into the raw hole in your gum. Your fever makes the world go soft around the edges. The horizon swirls. The sky brightens too fast, the sun too loud, the wind too sharp. You keep a rag pressed to your face like you're holding your head on. You lose time. Hours maybe. At some point, you find yourself muttering things you don't remember. Names. Places. Apologies. One phrase keeps coming up, over and over. That one rotten tooth. It feels like poetry. A stupid, agonizing poem written in nerve endings and regret. You think back to how this started. That molar had been a problem for weeks. Maybe months. You chewed on the other side. Avoided cold drinks. Spat out blood and blamed the jerky. You knew it was trouble. You just delayed. Because what can you do? You're a cowboy. The trail doesn't stop just because your enamel decides to betray you. You eat hardtack, chew jerky, drink black coffee boiled in a pan with ashes and bugs. There's no spa. No dentist. No preventative care. The best you get is someone with a knife and a kind lie. And now here you are. One tooth lighter. One fever heavier. Historians like to wax poetic about the grit of the Old West. But they forget it wasn't always about courage. Sometimes it was just inertia. You didn't keep going because you were brave. You kept going because stopping meant dying slower. And right now, you are very aware of that math. By sunset, you see a blur on the horizon. A cabin. Small. Smoke curling from the chimney like a thread. The other slow, unsure. Think it's empty? Jesse asks. Don't care, Cookie says. He ain't making it another night like this. They ride ahead cautious. You follow, swaying like a drunk puppeteer's marionette. They knock. A woman answers. Mid-40s. Apron. Flour on her hands. You got a sick one? She asks, eyes sharp. Got a cowboy with a hole in his face and a fever that won't quit, Cookie says. She sighs. Bring him inside. You don't remember getting off the horse. You just remember lying on something soft. Blankets. The smell of lavender. A basin of water. A clean cloth. She leans over you with a lantern and squints into your mouth. "Root's still in," she mutters. "And it's infected. Can you help?" Cookie asks. "I'm no doctor," she says, "but I've raised 4 sons and pulled more teeth than a buzzard in a graveyard. Heat a knife. Boil the whiskey. We're gonna have to cut." You try to speak, but sleep finds you first. And in that sleep, you dream of a molar, alive, angry, galloping toward you across the plains like a one-toothed outlaw. You wake to the smell of smoke. Not campfire smoke, not the comforting kind that sticks to your clothes and tells you you're still outside. No, this smoke is sharper. Hotter. It clings to your nose, cuts through the fog in your skull, and drags you back to the surface like a fishhook in your spine. You blink. Dim light filters through linen curtains. The walls are wooden, low and close. A cast iron stove pops softly in the corner. You're in a bed. A real bed. With blankets that don't smell like old horses and sadness. And your face hurts. But it's a different kind of pain now. Not the sharp, stinging stab of an angry nerve. Not the fevered pressure like your skull's being inflated from the inside. This pain is duller. Heavy. As if someone's been chiseling at your jaw with a brick, but at least the fire's gone. You reach up slowly. Your cheek is wrapped in cloth. Tightly. There's a faint coppery smell, blood, of course, but not fresh. Your mouth tastes like leather soaked in tobacco and bad decisions. You groan. A voice replies, "Don't try to talk. You'll just waste breath." You turn your head. It's her, the woman from the cabin. She's seated near the stove, sewing something in the low light. She doesn't look up. "You were burning up last night," she says, calm as a preacher at a funeral. "Took half a bottle of whiskey and 2 grown men just to hold you still." You try to sit up. Regret it immediately. The room spins and your stomach lurches like it's riding a separate horse altogether. She stands, walks over, and presses a firm hand to your chest. "You move too fast, you'll pop the stitching," she says. "And before you ask, yes, we had to stitch." Your eyes widen. She nods. "The root was rotting. Jaw was starting to abscess. We had to lance it. You screamed like you were being sawed in half, and that was before we brought out the knife." You close your eyes and let your head sink back into the pillow. You're not sure which is worse, the pain, or the knowledge that you're going to survive. "You're lucky it didn't spread to your blood," she adds. "That kind of infection moves quick. One day it's your jaw, next it's your brain, and then, well, you wouldn't be tucking up my guest bed." She moves to the table, pours something dark into a cup, and brings it over. "Drink," she says. You sniff. Smells like bark. And regret. "What is it?" You mumble. "Birch bark tea," she says. "Boiled down with willow root and sage. It's bitter, but it'll bring the swelling down." You sip. It's like drinking a boot. But you don't argue. Now, for your sleepy little trivia moment. Birch bark and willow root were common folk remedies in the 1800s. Both contained salicylates, natural painkillers similar to modern aspirin. Cowboys and settlers often chewed on twigs or brewed teas when professional medicine was out of reach. Whether it worked or just kept their minds busy is something historians still debate. But if it tasted this bad, it had to be medicine. You finish the cup and grimace. She chuckles. "Means it's working. You've heard that one before." She sits back down. "You'll live. But don't go riding out too soon. Fever's not done with you yet." You nod weakly. Outside, you hear the others talking. Hoofbeats. Supplies being moved. Life goes on. You lie there in the quiet, mouth aching but no longer screaming, and think about how a single tooth nearly ended you. It wasn't a bandit. Wasn't a shootout. Wasn't the Comanche or the weather or a drunken fall from a saloon balcony. It was a molar. A stupid, rotting piece of bone that almost dragged you into the grave. And you can't help but wonder how many other cowboys met the same fate. How many men were buried out there on the plains, not because of bullets or bad deals, but because of something as small as an infected root and no one nearby who knew how to dig it out. You're not out of the woods yet. But the worst might be behind you. You close your eyes. Drift. Not into fever now, but into something softer. Sleep, maybe. You dream of a quiet trail. One where your mouth doesn't ache. One where the only thing left behind is the ghost of a tooth and a very good story. You wake to the sound of a pan clinking and the scent of cornbread baking somewhere beyond the curtain. It takes a moment to orient yourself. No saddle beneath you, no cold dirt under your spine, no cookie cursing at the fire. Just linen sheets and a faint, thumping pain in your jaw. Still there. But manageable now. Like the toothache's been demoted to a background singer in the choir of your suffering. You sit up slowly this time. The world tilts, but it doesn't spin. Your legs dangle off the edge of the bed. You test your mouth. Opening it still feels like someone's tightened your jaw with a wagon wheel wrench, but it's less fiery. More like a bruise, deep and dull. The woman enters with a tray, balancing a plate of beans, 2 biscuits, and a tin cup of something steaming. You're upright. That's a good sign. You grunt. Still feel like I got punched by a blacksmith. Then you're definitely improving. She sets the tray on your lap, then sits across from you, folding her hands in that way people do when they've got something serious to say. You know you were lucky. You raise a brow. That kind of infection? Could have gone septic. Spread to your blood. Once that happens out here, you start shaking, jaw locks, and there's no coming back. Seen it before. A tooth turns mean, and a man dies babbling to the sky within 3 days. You nod slowly. The food smells better than it should. You tear off a bit of biscuit with careful fingers and soak it in the beans. The flavor is humble and perfect. Maybe it's the fever talking, but it tastes like something divine. She watches you eat for a moment, then adds, My youngest boy had a tooth go bad last winter. Didn't say a word about it until it was too late. By the time I noticed the fever, his whole face was the color of a storm cloud. He was gone before the 3rd night. You stop chewing. I'm telling you this, she continues gently, because most men don't realize how dangerous a little pain can be. Out here, pain is a warning. Ignoring it doesn't make you tough. It just makes you a body waiting for a pine box. You swallow hard. She's not lecturing. She's remembering. And that silence between you? It's filled with more than just loss. It's filled with a very old, very frontier kind of grief. The kind that doesn't scream. It just settles in. You sip from the tin cup. More birch bark. Still bitter. Still good for you. You don't even wince this time. Now here's your historical flavor nugget for the evening. Folks on the frontier often didn't even realize they were dying from a tooth problem. Face fever, jaw rot, and swelling sickness were common euphemisms in old records. Some cowhands just wandered off into the desert with a rag in their mouth, hoping the wind would cure them. Others drank themselves into unconsciousness until the pain stopped. Or they did. Modern historians argue whether frontier diets helped or hurt. On one hand, sugar was rare, no Coca-Cola or caramel apples. But on the other hand, they chewed tobacco, drank black coffee with ash, and ate bread hard enough to be classified as a weapon. Not exactly gentle on the gums. You set the cup down. Thank you, you say quietly. She nods, then stands. You'll rest one more night. After that, you're the trail's problem again. You lie back as the sun shifts through the window. Outside, you can hear Cookie's laugh. Someone's tending horses. The world spins on. With or without your tooth. You drift into a light doze and wake to the sounds of someone playing a fiddle nearby, badly, but with heart. You smile, just a little. It's not much, but it's the first time in days your face hasn't protested. You've turned a corner. The pain has changed. Now it's healing pain, the kind that whispers you survived. The next morning, you wake with your mouth dry as bone and a strange peace settled over your jaw. Not silence. No, the pain is still there, but it's no longer trying to murder you in your sleep. It's more like an angry neighbor banging on the wall once every few minutes instead of charging through it with a pickaxe. You swing your legs off the bed and sit for a while, listening. Birds chirp outside. Horses snort in the yard. And your tooth, or rather, the absence of it, just sits. Quiet. Sullen. Like a storm that's passed and left puddles and broken fences but didn't take the house. The woman, her name's May, you finally learn, appears with a shallow wooden bowl and something wrapped in cheesecloth. Warm compress, she says, handing it to you. Salt and ginger root. You press it to your jaw. It stings, then soothes. You grunt in appreciation. I'd offer you something stronger, she adds, but you've already had enough whiskey to pickle a full-grown bull. You smirk, careful not to do it on the stitched side. May sets a small mirror on the windowsill. You catch a glimpse of your face. It's not pretty. The swelling's gone down some, but your cheeks still puffy and blotched red. The stitches, black thread-like. Spider legs. Arch across your gum line inside your mouth like a cruel prank played by someone with too much time and no bedside manner. You look like you lost a bar fight with your horse, May says cheerfully. You nod. Feels about right. She pours more tea. This batch smells less like bark and more like cloves. You sip. It's still bitter, but less punishing. You'll ride today? She asks. You hesitate, then nod. We've got cattle waiting. Can't let the boys wander off without me. She raises an eyebrow. Can't or won't? There's a long pause. I've known men like you, she adds, not unkindly. Won't let themselves rest because they think it's weakness. But letting yourself heal, that's the only reason you're alive right now. You don't answer. She's not wrong. But she also doesn't understand what it means to be a cowboy in 1873. There are no sick days. No recovery rooms. You ride, or you fall behind. You keep moving, or you vanish into the dirt with the rest of the forgotten ones. It's not about pride. It's about survival. You gather your gear, grateful your saddle didn't wander off in the night. Cookie meets you outside with a fresh canteen and a sideways glance. You're looking slightly less like a rotting pumpkin, he says. Encouraging. The rest of the crew is already mounted. Jesse's got your horse saddled and waiting. How's the mouth? He asks, tugging at the reins. Better. You lie. They nod. No one pushes further. On the trail, pain is like a nickname. Everyone's got one, but no one wants to hear the full story. You mount up. It hurts. Of course it does. The saddle feels like it's grown new angles in your absence. The reins pull at your shoulder. The sun glares down with full summer authority. But you're upright. And moving. And that counts for something. As you ride out of May's yard, she stands on the porch, arms folded, watching you go. She doesn't wave. Doesn't smile. Just watches. Like someone who's seen too many leave half alive and never come back. You tip your hat. She nods once. And just like that, she's behind you. The trail stretches ahead like a scar across the land. The others chatter as they ride, but your world narrows to the rhythm of hooves and the steady thump in your jaw. And here's your little frontier trivia break to chew on, carefully of course. In many pioneer communities, women like May were the unsung heroes of healthcare. With no formal training, they learned from experience, delivering babies, cleaning wounds, sewing skin. They were midwives, healers, caretakers, and often the only line between a cowboy and the undertaker. Historians still argue how many lives were saved by such women, but most agree they did more good with boiled herbs and steady hands than any traveling quack with a pocket full of leeches. The ride feels long, but steady. Your body aches in familiar places now, shoulders, knees, lower back. The fever's broken, and though your mouth feels like you gargled with gravel, it's no longer the center of your world. That honor now returns to the trail itself. Dry. Hot. Relentless. By sundown, you're camping again, wrapped in your bedroll, cheek pressed to your saddlebag. Cookie hands you a mug of broth. Still can't chew? He asks. Still choosing not to. You reply. He nods. Wise man. You sip carefully, the warm liquid sliding past the ruined landscape of your gums. The stars blink into existence overhead. You lie there and wonder, how many men rode with pain like this and said nothing? How many died under the same stars, not from bullets or arrows, but from something so small no one even gave it a name? You fall asleep with that thought, and dream of horses, and empty chairs in barber shops, and one woman standing on a porch, arms folded, waiting to see if you come back next time. Morning dawns hard and gold, burning across the plains like a slow wildfire. The sky is clear, cruelly so, and the air tastes like dust and dry promises. You stretch carefully beneath your blanket, every joint cracking like kindling. Your jaw protests immediately, a dull, grinding reminder that healing on the trail is never done. It's just postponed until the next injury joins the choir. The others are already stirring. Cookie's banging pans like he's trying to summon the dead. Jesse's rewrapping his stirrups. Hank is muttering to his horse, which is frankly the only one willing to listen to him this early. You sit up, brush the grit from your eyes, and test your mouth with the caution of a man approaching a rattlesnake that might be asleep. Not bad. Still sore. Still stiff. But no fever. No new blood. No imaginary donkeys whispering regrets into your ear. You count that as progress. As you pull on your boots, Cookie shuffles over and hands you a small pouch. Chew this, he says. Tobacco's too rough for you right now, but this'll help. You open it. Inside, a bundle of shredded bark and leaves tied with twine. What is it? You ask, sniffing. Birch shavings. Dried cloves. Pinch of wintergreen. You raise an eyebrow. You running a trail apothecary now? He snorts. I had a mother. She weren't much for cuddles, but she could cure just about anything with tree bark and threats. You take a tentative chew. It tastes foresty. Sharp. Like Christmas punched you in the tongue. But it works. The clove numbs. The birch soothes. The wintergreen chases away the metallic tang that's haunted your mouth since Josiah's iron handshake with your molar socket. Here's a bit of fun, and slightly disturbing, frontier history. Cloves were once a common treatment for toothaches and mouth infections. Not just because of the numbing oil, eugenol, but because it masked the smell of rotting gums and dead nerves. That's right. Your ancestors walked around with breath so bad it required spices imported from halfway around the world just to keep conversation civil. Historians still argue whether it was more for medicine or manners, but either way, cloves were worth their weight in gold teeth. You ride again today, but this time you feel present. Awake. The pain no longer owns you. It's just a quiet passenger, whispering complaints like a mother-in-law in the back of a wagon. The land stretches out before you, indifferent and endless. Cacti stand like sentinels. Hawks circle like time itself. You pass a riverbed dry as a preacher's humor, and a rock outcrop shaped suspiciously like a dog's backside. Hank insists it brings luck. Jesse disagrees. You ignore them both. Around midday, you stop near a watering hole. The horses drink. You sit beneath a mesquite tree, dabbing your cheek with a cool rag, and watch a lizard do push-ups on a rock like it's challenging you to a duel. You almost laugh. Almost. But laughing pulls your stitches, so you settle for a lopsided smirk. And then, from nowhere, someone brings up Edgar. You haven't thought about Edgar in a while. He was a trail hand 3 seasons back. Good rider. Terrible snorer. Ate nails for breakfast and claimed he'd once bitten a rattlesnake in half. Just to teach it humility. Tough as jerky left out in the sun. He died from a tooth. Woke up one morning with a swollen jaw. Kept riding anyway. Said it was nothing. 2 days later, he couldn't open his mouth. Day after that, he was shaking, muttering about spiders crawling under his skin. You buried him on a ridge under a tree no one could name. 1 molar. 1 root left too long. That's all it took. Cowboy death. Cookie had called it. The kind that doesn't leave a mark anyone cares to read about. You sip water from your canteen, roll the clove bark between your gums, and glance at the others. They don't talk about Edgar anymore. But you remember. And it's that memory, not the pain, that keeps you wary now. That keeps your saddlebag stocked with salt, cloth, and a scrap of clove bark. You've survived the tooth. But you know this trail doesn't give second warnings often. You mount up again as the sun slides west, trailing gold across your back. And somewhere in your mind, behind the ache and the dust, a thought blooms. One tooth can take you down. But sometimes, just one woman with a hot knife and a steady hand can bring you back. The sun dips low, painting the prairie in shades of brass and bruised lavender, and you ride like a man returning from war, not the flashy, saber-swinging kind, but the slow, invisible kind. The kind fought in fever and silence, in sweat and stitching, in a molar turned malevolent. The others don't say much. Cowboys aren't exactly known for group therapy. But now and then you catch someone glancing your way. Not worried exactly. More like watching. Seeing if you've really got two boots back in the land of the living. You do. Mostly. Your jaw throbs in time with your heartbeat, but it's a low, respectful throb now. Not screaming. Not boiling. Just humming under the surface like an old stove that hasn't quite gone out. You chew your clove bark slowly, savoring the way it dulls the edge of everything. It's like a friend now, bitter, dependable, a little too honest. As dusk settles in, Cookie points to a rocky rise ahead. We'll make camp there. Good view, soft ground. Fewer things crawling in your boots. He wasn't lying. The spot is almost comfortable. You dismount with care, your saddle muscles complain, but your mouth stays quiet. Small wins. You'll take them. While Jesse and Hank tend the horses, you walk the perimeter with a lantern. Not because anyone asked, but because movement helps. Every step reminds you, you're still here. Still walking. Still not dead from a tooth. You kick a rattlesnake skull out of the brush. Just the jawbone and a few vertebrae left. Poetic. You mutter. You toss it into the fire when you get back. The fire crackles. The beans bubble. And Cookie, because he's a sucker for tradition, pulls out his harmonica. He can't play. Not really. But he blows a few notes that sound vaguely like a funeral march, and then shrugs. Better than the moaning you were doing a few nights ago, he says. Barely. Jesse adds. You smile. A real one. It hurts. But only a little. As the others settle in, you sit with your back to a boulder, eyes on the fire, jaw resting in your palm. You watch the stars crawl out across the sky, slow, careful, like they're trying not to wake the coyotes. The pain is quieter now. Not just in your mouth. In your bones. That raw, twitchy feeling of being on the edge of something, death, maybe, or worse, dependence, has finally faded. You're not all the way back, but you're no longer in freefall. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you start doing the math. You lost a tooth. Gained 3 scars. 1 inside, 2 out. Missed 2 days of trail time. And you survived something that once killed better men. You chew a little more bark, glance around the camp, and wonder, when this ride's over, when you get your pay and shake the dust from your boots, will anyone ever know? Will anyone ever care? A cowboy's story doesn't usually include his molars. It's all stampedes and shoots, broncos and barmaids. But this was the real fight. No witnesses. No glory. Just you, a fever, and a stubborn old woman with a boiled blade. And maybe, just maybe, that's what makes it matter. Here's your fringe historical tidbit to savor while the fire dies down. Some frontier cowboys kept their pulled teeth in little pouches tied to their belts. Not for medicine. Not for memory. Just proof. Proof they'd endured it. Like notches on a gun, but for pain. One cowboy was rumored to have 17. Another supposedly kept his tucked into the lining of his hat like grisly trophies. Historians still argue whether that's truth or tall tale. But either way, the point stands. Out here, survival isn't marked by what you gain. It's marked by what you lose and keep going anyway. A molar. A finger. A friend. Tonight your loss was just a tooth. But what you gained? Perspective. You shift in your bedroll, the fire painting shadows on your blanket. Cookie snores already. Jesse mumbles in his sleep. Hank coughs once, then rolls over. You stare at the stars, not wondering why this happened, but how many times it nearly didn't. By the third day back on the trail, you start to notice something new, quiet. Not just around you, out here, silence is as common as dust, but inside. In your head. In your mouth. In that hollow socket where your tooth used to plot its mutiny. It's not entirely gone. The ache lingers like an old grudge. But the swelling's down. The fever's gone. The dreams, those fever-ridden rambles about pliers and ghost teeth, have faded. You chew your breakfast slow, overcooked beans, tough biscuit, jerky softened in last night's coffee. It's still not fun. But it's no longer torture. You even manage to chew on the other side. Look at you, Cookie says, nudging your shoulder with the back of his spoon. Mouth like a proper human again. Mostly. You grunt. He chuckles and goes back to stirring whatever horror he's got boiling in that pot. The rest of the crew is in good spirits. Hank spotted a herd of wild mustangs earlier, and Jesse insists he saw a comet in the pre-dawn sky. Or a very organized owl, he admits, sipping from his tin cup. You smile, careful not to test the stitches. It's been days since you laughed without pain. Feels almost unnatural. But you've earned this calm. And it makes you think. Out here, it's easy to forget your body's full of fragile little systems. Gums. Nerves. Roots. All hidden, all working, or not, without much supervision. You go weeks without noticing. Then one tiny infection flares up, and suddenly your whole world revolves around a throbbing in your jaw. It's humbling. Terrifying even. You look around the camp and wonder how many of these men are walking around with time bombs behind their smiles. Teeth ready to crack. Gums ready to burst. Nerves so frayed they could unravel at the first bad chew. No one talks about it, of course. Not out loud. But now that you've crossed that particular desert, you can see it. In Jesse's way of rubbing his jaw when he thinks no one's watching. In Hank's refusal to eat anything he can't soak in his coffee. In Cookie's pouch of clove sticks, carefully tucked between his jerky and his bullets. It's everywhere. And no one says a word. Because out here, talking about pain feels like inviting it in. Like naming a storm that hasn't hit you yet. The trail winds west through a canyon this afternoon. You ride in silence, soaking in the shade. The air is cooler here. Still dry, but gentler on your lungs. The horse's hooves echo off the stone walls like a slow, deliberate heartbeat. You spot a jackrabbit dart between rocks. A hawk screeches somewhere overhead. The rhythm of movement, the sway of the saddle, it's meditative. And for the first time in a week, you forget the pain completely for a few minutes. You just ride. By dusk you reach a river. Wide, shallow, smooth as a pane of glass. You strip off your boots, roll up your pants, and step in without ceremony. The water is cold. Blissfully so. It numbs everything from the ankle down. Soaks into your socks. Chills your bones. You bend down, scoop a handful to your mouth, and rinse. Not in pain. Not in panic. Just to feel clean. It's been a long time since you rinsed without bleeding. Cookie joins you with his canteen, kneeling beside you like an old dog. You know, he says, I once read a book, don't ask where I got it, that said Roman soldiers used to clean their mouths with vinegar and salt. You glance over. Did it work? Dunno. Guess they're all dead now, so maybe not. You laugh. It hurts, just a little. But it's a good kind of hurt. The kind that says, you're alive, and everything still works, even the broken parts. You stand, stretch, and watch the sun slip behind the far ridge. Your boots are still wet. Your mouth still aches. The trail still stretches out ahead of you, hard and unforgiving. But you're here. Riding. Healing. One tooth lighter. And a whole lot wiser. The next morning, the camp wakes slow, like molasses sliding downhill. No rush today. No cattle stampede, no outlaws, no storms on the horizon, just sun, sand, and saddle leather. You lie there for a while, blanket pulled to your chest, eyes half open as a hummingbird flits past, vibrating like a tiny miracle. It pauses, hovers, then zips off like it remembered somewhere more urgent to be. You envy it. When you sit up, your jaw groans, but doesn't scream. The sharpness is gone, replaced by a stiff ache, like a door hinge that needs oil. You probe gently with your tongue. Still stitched. Still swollen. But healing. You stand, stretch, and join the others by the fire. Cookie hands you a pan-fried flapjack that looks like it fought in the Civil War. You take a bite, small, cautious. And nothing breaks. You nod to yourself. Victory. You eatin' solid food now? Hank asks, brows raised. Trying. Careful, Jesse says, sipping from his tin. That's how it starts. First it's a flapjack. Next thing you know, you're biting into jerky like nothing ever happened, and boom, jaw locks tighter than a bank vault. Cookie grunts. He'll be fine. He's stubborn. The kind of man who'd survive a hangin' just to spite the rope. You chew slowly. Thoughtfully. Every bite is a memory now. Not of food, but of pain. Of salt and blood in a cracked root under a dim lantern in a stranger's home. You don't say it out loud, but eating like this? It feels like a ceremony. A return. A quiet, edible triumph. You ride again today, and the trail stretches wide, flat, and dull. Nothing remarkable. Just endless dust and fences that lean like they're tired of standing. You pass a half-burnt barn, a windmill missing 2 blades, and a single longhorn staring at your group like it owes you money. It's the kind of ride that lets your mind wander. And today, it wanders to Clove Oil. Back in Dry Creek, you'd heard of it. Someone at the trading post whispered about a tiny glass vial with enough pain relief to make a man weep. The good kind of weeping. You'd laughed it off at the time. But now, you're stitched jaw riding on the edge of soreness, you think, maybe that was worth the boots. Turns out, clove oil was one of the few actual effective pain remedies on the frontier. It numbs, kills bacteria, even reduces swelling. The problem? It was rare. Imported. Expensive. And most cowboys weren't about to trade a rifle or a saddle blanket for something that came in a bottle no bigger than a thimble. Historians still debate whether clove oil saved more mouths than it numbed. Some say it was a miracle for those who had it. Others point out that by the time most folks found any, they were already halfway to needing a coffin. You never got to try it. But you think about it now, as the sun climbs and your jaw holds steady. Sometimes, just knowing there was a better option out there is enough to keep a man going. Hope is a strange medicine. By midday, the crew halts near a rock outcrop for water and shade. You dismount, stretch your back, and find a flat stone to sit on. Cookie tosses you a canteen and a strip of beef that looks like it could be used to patch a saddle. You stare at it. Then slowly, carefully, tear off a piece with your fingers. You don't try to chew it. Just hold it. Smell it. Remember it. Because chewing jerky? That's a goal for next week. You stare out over the prairie, tongue resting behind your teeth, or what's left of them, and you breathe deep. The air smells of dry grass, dust, and horses. But also something else. Possibility. The worst is behind you now. The fever, the pain, the panic. That dark tunnel where time and pain stretched until they felt the same. You survived. And for once, that feels like enough. You pocket the jerky, stand, and swing back into the saddle with only a small grunt. The ride continues. And you with it. The sun is sliding down the sky again, long shadows stretching like fingers across the plains. The air's turning cooler. Wind whispering low through the tall grass. You've been riding since midday, and for the first time in what feels like weeks, your body isn't at war with itself. Your jaw's not normal, not by a long shot. But it's calm now. Tired, sore, stiff. But calm. Like a campfire that's burned down to coals. Still warm, but no longer trying to burn the whole prairie down. You pull your bandana loose and spit into the dirt. Just spit this time. No blood. No strings of infection or bitter black reminders of what nearly killed you. You tip your hat back and smile. You're grinning, Jessie says from beside you. That's suspicious. Got a reason, you murmur. You winning at poker in your head or something? Nah, you say. Just remembering that I'm not dead. That shuts him up. And for good reason. Because that's something most men out here don't say out loud. They assume they'll wake up tomorrow. They don't reflect on it. They sure as hell don't say it like it's a blessing. But you earn that line. And you'll say it as often as you like. Camp that night is tucked up against a bluff, where the wind can't get to you and the stars come out early. Cookie's got something decent boiling, onions, beans, and what might be squirrel. You're not sure, and you don't ask. You sit by the fire, rolling your shoulders, watching the sparks lift skyward like tiny prayers. The crew's quieter than usual. Not sad. Just worn. It's the rhythm of the trail. Some nights are for music. Some nights are for stories. Some are for silence and chewing your thoughts like jerky. You reach into your saddlebag and pull out something wrapped in cloth. You unfold it carefully. It's your tooth. Or what's left of it. The bigger piece, at least. The one Josiah yanked loose before the fever took you under. It's dark at the root. Jagged on the edges. Looks like a broken mountain carved from ivory and pain. You turn it over in your hand, thumb rubbing over its cracked surface. Hank leans over. That it? You nod. He whistles. Looks like it was ready to go to war. Yeah, you say. And I nearly lost. He chuckles. You should keep it. Why? He shrugs. Proof. In case anyone ever doubts you. You glance around the fire. No one's laughing. No one's mocking. They all get it. You reach for your hat, slide the tooth inside the sweatband, and pat it gently. It's not a trophy. Not really. More like a reminder. Of what pain can do. Of how close the edge can be. And how sometimes surviving is a quiet, defiant thing. Here's your historical oddity for the night. Some 19th century cowboys believed that burying a pulled tooth under a specific kind of tree, usually a mesquite or cottonwood, would prevent it from coming back in your dreams. Superstition? Of course. But if you'd lived through a frontier toothache, you'd bury the thing under a whole forest just to sleep through the night. You don't bury yours, though. You keep it. Not because you're afraid of dreams, but because you want to remember. Not just the pain, but what it costs you to make it stop. And what it means to ride again with a mouth full of silence where once there was war. That night you lie back on your bedroll, hands folded on your chest, mouth closed, breathing slow. The stars blink overhead. The wind rustles the dry grass. And the ache in your jaw has become something else. Not pain. Just memory. Morning breaks soft, like a whisper between old friends. No shouting sunlight, no snapping cold, just the hush of dawn on an open plain. You're already awake when the first crow calls, lying still in your bedroll, staring at the sky as it turns from ink to ash to gold. You run your tongue along your gums. Stitches still there. Sockets still sore. But the fire is gone. You feel human again. When you sit up, Cookie's already up, squatting by the fire with a kettle that may have seen battle. He glances over, offers a nod, not overly concerned, not overly sentimental. Just noticing. You're looking less like roadkill this morning. He mutters. Feels like an improvement. Better drink before the coffee starts fighting back. You take the cup he hands you and sip carefully. It's as bitter as betrayal but warm in the right places. You don't even wince. Not at the temperature, not at the taste, not at the way it swirls near your molar's old apartment like it's checking if it can move back in. Doc would say stay off the trail another week. Cookie offers, not looking up. Trail don't wait. You answer. He doesn't argue. No point. You eat breakfast slow. Still favoring the good side of your mouth, but the fear is gone. You don't flinch with every bite. You're not measuring your pain anymore. You're measuring progress. You pack up, tighten your saddle, mount up without help. And as the horses fall into rhythm, something settles inside you, like the final piece of a wheel finally dropping into place. It's strange how something so small can nearly undo you. A tooth. Just a tooth. But the damage it did wasn't just in your jaw, it was in your confidence. Your place in the group. Your sense of invincibility. Now you know better. Now you ride smarter. The trail is wide today. Big sky, bright sun. You pass cacti taller than a man and skulls bleached by years of silence. Wind whistles through a canyon just wide enough to echo your hoofbeats back at you like ghosts trying to keep pace. By midday, you pull up beside a watering hole. Shallow, murky, and probably half mud, but enough for the horses. You kneel beside it, splash your face, and peer at your reflection. You look rough. Lean. Weathered. Older than you did a week ago. But your eyes? Clear. Your jaw? Calm. You hear a cough behind you and turn to see Jesse standing with a small tin box in his hand. Found this in the last town. Meant to give it to you sooner. You raise an eyebrow and take it. Inside, a half-used vial of clove oil and a small, folded note that simply reads, "For next time. J." You shake your head, smiling. Hope there ain't a next time. He shrugs. There always is. And that's the truth of it, isn't it? Out here, there's always a next time. Next fall. Next fever. Next wound. The West doesn't care how close you came. It only asks how far you're willing to go again. You tuck the tin into your saddlebag. It clinks gently, like a tiny promise of mercy in a world that rarely offers any. And here's your quiet historical fact for the ride ahead. Cowboy medicine kits, such as they were, often included tobacco, salt, whiskey, sewing needles, and a small bottle of some mystery cure-all. But clove oil? That was a luxury. If you had it, you guarded it. Traded for it. Hoarded it like gold. Because pain out here didn't just hurt, it lingered. And the only thing worse than the pain was the fear of its return. The crew rides on, a thin ribbon of dust trailing behind your horses. Evening approaches without incident. And as you bed down once more beneath the stars, you do something you haven't done since the day this all started. You sleep, deep, dreamless, and unafraid. Because tonight, there is no fever. No blade. No voice whispering from the hollow of your jaw. Only silence. And a man who knows, at last, that he can outlive even the worst kind of hurt. You wake before dawn again, not because of pain this time, but because of habit. The sky is a velvet curtain, still drawn tight. Stars blink quietly overhead, and the air smells clean, sharp, like dew on dry earth. You lie still, hands folded across your chest, listening to the world hold its breath. There's peace in the quiet. A different kind than you knew before the tooth. Back then, silence was just nothing happening yet. Now it feels earned. Sacred, almost. You reach into your coat pocket and pull out the tooth. Well, half a tooth. The piece Josiah managed to tear out before everything went sideways. It's smaller than you remember. Ugly, yes, but somehow, less than what it was. Less menacing. Just a fragment of something that no longer holds power over you. You wrap it in cloth again and tuck it away. You don't carry it as a warning anymore. Now it's a reminder. The others stir as the first hints of orange stretch along the horizon. Cookie grumbles something unintelligible and slaps the side of the coffee pot. Jesse hums tunelessly while packing his bedroll. Hank tells the same story he always does about the time he outran a grizzly. No one believes it, but we let him tell it anyway. Routine has returned. And so have you. Breakfast is quick. You chew slowly, but with confidence. The food doesn't bite back anymore. And that's something. As you mount up and head out, the trail feels new somehow. Like it's turned a page. You glance back over your shoulder once, just to see the fading outline of the campsite against the bluff. The place where the worst of it happened. The place you survived. It's behind you now. You ride through a narrow canyon around midday, where the wind shifts in strange ways and the rock walls seem to whisper. It's the kind of place where stories get born, where cowboys say they saw ghost riders or heard voices that weren't wind or man. You don't hear ghosts today, but you do remember something they said while sewing your jaw shut. Pain tells the truth about a man. Not just what he can take, but what he won't let go of. Back then, you thought she was talking about teeth. Now you think she was talking about fear. Because that was the real wound, wasn't it? Not the roots still lodged in your gum. Not the fever. It was the way the pain made you small. Made you doubt. Made you want to disappear into the ground like a coyote afraid of its own shadow. You glanced at Jesse riding ahead, at Cookie tapping his canteen to the rhythm of his horse's gait. No one ever said it, but they all knew. You were slipping, and they waited for you to fight your way back. That's the trail way. You don't carry each other. You just wait. Ride a little slower. Talk a little less. Make room. By late afternoon, you crest a rise and see smoke in the distance. Not fire, just a cook stove, probably. A settlement. Maybe 5 or 6 buildings, a well, a few fences half finished and already leaning. You squint at the faint shape of a sign, Milner's Crossing. Think they got a dock? Jesse asks. Or a dentist? Cookie mutters. You rub your jaw instinctively. I got one, you say. Not looking for seconds. But curiosity nudges you. So when the crew splits off, Hank needing to fix a saddle strap, Jesse chasing down a mule, you drift toward the far end of the settlement. Past the saloon. Past the empty church. Toward a shack with a crooked sign, Healer. No promises. You knock. A woman opens the door. Early 30s. Apron dusted with flour, not blood. Problem? Had a tooth pulled. Few days back. Just wanted a second opinion. She squints, opens the door wider. You step inside. It smells like vinegar and dried herbs. She doesn't say much, just washes her hands, lights a lantern, and tilts your chin. Carefully, gently, she pries your jaw open and peers inside. Nice work, she murmurs. Clean line. No signs of rot. You've been rinsing? Birch bark. Clove. Salt when I can stand it. She nods. Keep at it. Let it close on its own. And rest when you can. You nod. Won't be much of that. Her eyes soften. Then choose slow, talk less, and ride smarter. You leave with a small tin of antiseptic salve and a quiet kind of gratitude. Outside, the sun's dipping again. The wind picks up. And the trail calls. You mount up without fanfare, rejoining the others as the world tilts toward twilight. No one asks what you saw. No one needs to. You're riding easy again. And that says enough? The wind has a bite to it now. Not cold, exactly, just enough edge to remind you that summer's winding down and the land's already thinking about winter. The grasses are turning brittle. The clouds move lower across the sky. The sun hangs heavier in the afternoon, like it's tired of burning so hard. You pull your coat tighter and ride on. The settlement fades behind you like a dream you didn't quite believe in. Milner's Crossing wasn't much, just a few cabins, a crooked well, a rusty horseshoe nailed to a post for luck. But they had clean bandages, salve, a kind woman with a steady hand and honest eyes. That's more than most towns can say. And maybe more important than any of it, they gave you confirmation. The infection's gone. The wound's healing. Your jaw is safe. Well, safer. It's still sore, of course. The gum's tender, and there's a weird hollowness that messes with your bite. But that searing, bone-deep pain? Gone. The kind that whispered death through clenched teeth and fevered dreams? That's done. Now it's just healing, and the memories that come with it. The horses plod along. The trail is quiet, and so is the crew. Jesse rides with his hat low, humming something tuneless. Cookie mutters to himself, probably thinking about supper. You hang back a bit, letting your horse take its own pace while your mind wanders. You start thinking about the bad ones. Not cattle drives. Not gunfights. Not bandits or border skirmishes. No, the quiet killers. The little ones. The invisible ones. Like this tooth. You remember, years ago, when a young trail hand named Billy went down with what everyone thought was heat stroke. Turned out it was an ear infection that crawled into his skull. He didn't make it past the next sunrise. Or Sam Harper, the gambler with a heart of gold and breath like a dying bear. He coughed blood for weeks but wouldn't stop smoking that sweet tobacco. When he finally passed, the doc said his mouth was so rotten, his teeth had started falling into his throat. Historians love to write about the West like it was all duels at high noon and saloon brawls. But what they leave out are the slow deaths. The quiet suffering. The cowboys who rode 10 miles a day while their bones ached, their lungs filled, their gums bled. And they just rode through it. Because what else could they do? There were no urgent cares. No pain specialists. No anesthetics beyond whiskey and hope. You lived with it, or died from it. And somewhere in between, if you were lucky, you healed. You crest a hill just before dusk and look down over a small basin, a wide sweep of grass and rock, with a trickling stream cutting through the middle like a silver ribbon. The perfect place to camp. You dismount, stretch your legs, and run a hand along your jaw. Still there. Still yours. Still not beating you. As the crew sets up camp, Cookie finds a flat rock and lines up his tin pots like they're soldiers. He tosses a hunk of something that might be rabbit into a pan, stirs it, sniffs it, shrugs. Smells like a memory I wish I didn't have, Jesse mutters, settling onto a saddle blanket. You sit nearby, warming your hands by the fire, and for the first time since the toothache began, you speak without thinking. Want to hear something funny? They look up. I'd rather get shot again than go through that toothache twice. Jesse whistles. That bad? You nod. At least with a bullet, someone can pull it out clean. This thing? It lingered. Chewed at me from the inside. Cookie smirks. You get poetic when you're Hottentot. You raise your cup. I get poetic when I survive. And you all laugh, because it's true. And because laughter, even sore-jawed and gravel-voiced, feels better than fear. Here's something else the books forget. Humor was a frontier medicine. Jokes were shared like bandages. Laughter stitched men together better than any doctor could. Historians sometimes note how many Western diaries were filled with humor, even gallows humor. And they still argue whether it was bravado or survival instinct. You know the answer, both. You lie back that night with your hat pulled low, a blanket up to your chest, and the fire crackling at your feet. The stars blink above like old friends. The pain is fading. But the lesson? That stays. You survived something no one else will ever fully understand. Not because they couldn't, but because it didn't happen to them. But you'll carry it. Quietly. Like a hidden scar inside your mouth. A badge of grit no one can see. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. You dream of chewing. Nothing fancy, just a crisp apple. Cold red, just plucked off a tree that doesn't grow anywhere near the plains. You take a bite, and for the first time in weeks, it doesn't hurt. No lightning jolt to the jaw, no stabbing reminder that you're one molar short. Just the sound of the crunch, the juice on your tongue, and the kind of peace only dreams can offer. You wake up smiling. It doesn't last long. Because of course, Cookie made breakfast again. And Cookie, bless his stubborn heart, has 2 food settings, burnt or questionable. This morning, it's biscuits. Hard ones. You tap yours on your canteen and it rings like a warning bell. You sigh, snap it in half, and soak it in coffee until it's soggy enough to chew. You manage a few cautious bites, slow, deliberate. It hurts a little. But not like before. More like a reminder. Like the ache you get from a scar after rain. It tells you something happened. But it also tells you it's over. Still favoring the left side? Jesse asks, peeking over his cup. Not taking any chances. He nods. Can't blame you. I had a tooth pulled 2 years ago. Took a month before I stopped flinching every time someone laughed too loud. You chuckle. It hurts. But just a little. After breakfast, you ride out across flat land scattered with scrub and ghost fences. Those half-built, half-fallen wooden barriers that no one bothers to fix anymore. You pass an abandoned wagon, half buried in sand. The wheels have rotted to stubs. One broken spoke still clings stubbornly to its hub like it doesn't know it's dead. And maybe that's you. Not the wagon. The spoke. You didn't break off. You held on. That thought carries you through the morning ride. By noon, the sky goes strange. Not dark, but flat. Bleached of color. The wind shifts from playful to pensive. Storm's coming. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. You can feel it in your joints. And in your jaw. The ache flares briefly with the change in pressure. Not sharp. Just enough to say, still here. Cookie rides up beside you. We'll hole up early today. Got a shack up ahead, used to be a trapper's cabin. If it ain't burned down, it'll keep us dry. You nod. You don't mind getting wet, but you do mind getting sick. After what your mouth's been through, your body's earned a little mercy. The shack is still there. Barely. One wall's bowed in, and the roof leaks like an old boot, but it's better than open sky. You tie the horses, stack your saddle against the driest wall, and sit down just as thunder rumbles faint and far in the west. Inside the shack, you find an old chair, a bent horseshoe nailed to the beam, and, miraculously, a rusted tin of Dr. Macallan's pain powder. You pick it up, shake it. There's still something inside. You hand it to Cookie. Real stuff? He opens it, sniffs. Could be willow bark. Could be powdered lizard tail. Won't know till we try it. You pass. You've had enough experiments in frontier pharmacology to last a lifetime. Instead, you dig out your pouch of clove bark, pop a shred in your mouth, and settle back to listen to the storm roll in. It's strange how peace doesn't always feel like silence. Sometimes it's wind through cracks, rain tapping on a warped roof, the heavy breathing of horses under shelter, the low murmur of cowboys telling stories they've told a dozen times, and laughing like it's the first. In that moment you realize something. You're not just healing. You're changed. The pain wasn't just a thing that happened. It marked you. Made you slower to speak. Quicker to notice. Softer when someone winces. Because now you know. The next time a man says, "It's just a toothache," you won't scoff. You'll listen. Because that's what this gave you. Not just survival, but understanding. Here's your quirky historical flavor for the night. Some frontier cowboys swore that if you slept with a tooth under your saddle, it'd keep your horse from going lame. Others said burying it under the threshold of your bunkhouse would ward off future pain. Historians chalk it up to superstition, but you get it. After pain like that, you'll do just about anything not to feel it again. You lie back on your blanket, hat over your eyes, clove bark tucked in your cheek, and listen to the storm begin its dance across the plains. Your jaw throbs once, then fades. You smile. Not because it's over, but because you're still here. The storm rolls out sometime before dawn, leaving behind a soaked world that smells of damp ash, wet leather, and grass brought back to life. You wake to the sound of raindrops dripping through the cracks in the roof and hitting Cookie's pan with lazy, metallic plinks. A rooster crows far in the distance, confused and too early. You sit up and stretch. Carefully. The stiffness in your jaw is fading day by day now, retreating like a defeated outlaw riding off into the dusk. Still sore, still a little swollen, but manageable. Better than manageable, it's normal, in its own ragged, half-healed way. Jesse's packing his gear by the hearth, shaking water from his boots like a dog. Hank's still snoring, arms crossed over his chest like he's guarding treasure. Cookie, of course, is already stoking a tiny fire with twigs and curses. Rain stopped, you say, rubbing the sleep from your face. Cookie grunts. Mostly. He passes you a cup of something vaguely brown. Taste it first, he adds. It's coffee. Allegedly. You sip. It's awful. But it's warm, and the bitterness helps scrape the fog from your brain. The shack is still standing, if only barely. The fire last night was mostly for comfort. Between the leaky roof, the crooked walls, and a draft that cut through like a knife, you all slept half-curled like possums on a barn floor. But there was shelter, and after all you've been through, shelter feels sacred. By mid-morning, the sky clears. You saddle up, tuck your gear, and ride on across plains freshly washed and glittering with dew. And that's when it hits you, how different it feels now to be out of that place. Out of the cage of your own pain. The world is brighter, sharper. You notice the curve of distant hills, the low hum of insects waking from the storm. Even the mud squishing under your horse's hooves feels like proof that you made it through something. The others ride quiet for a while. A kind of reverent quiet. Like they, too, are thinking about storms survived, seen or unseen. Then, about an hour down the trail, something unexpected happens. You laugh. Real laughter. It starts small, then builds. No reason. No joke. Just a sudden surge of joy, bubbling up from somewhere deep. Jesse looks over, eyebrows raised. You okay? Feels good, you say, still grinning. To laugh without wincing. He nods, and there's that unspoken moment between men who've both been on the wrong side of pain and remember what it's like to come through the fire. You ride into a new town that afternoon, a real town this time. Wood-framed buildings, a blacksmith, a general store with a sign that swings evenly in the breeze. A doctor's office with a glass window not yet cracked. You don't need the doctor. But you stop by anyway. You find the doc outside, smoking a pipe, trousers tucked into boots, white coat flapping in the wind like it's trying to take off without him. He looks you over and says, "You the one they said passed through Milner's with a busted jaw?" "Busted tooth. You correct." He nods. "That's the worst kind." You exchange a few words. He checks your stitches. Declares them neat. Asks who did the work. You tell him, May. A woman with flour on her apron and fire in her hands. "Damn shame she's not licensed," he mutters, impressed. You smile, and it doesn't hurt. "I'll leave you with this," the doc says, tapping the side of his head. "Pain's a teacher. But infection's a liar. Don't wait next time." You nod and tip your hat. He's right. You've learned that now. You meet back with the crew near the livery. You trade a few coins for supplies, chew a strip of jerky, carefully, and saddle up again. As the town fades behind you, you feel like something else is fading too. Fear. Not entirely gone. But quieter. You know what pain can do now. But more importantly, you know what you can do. Here's your quirky historical tidbit for today. Some frontier men would carve notches into their saddles for every major wound they survived. Bullet graze? 1 notch. Broken rib? Another. Lost tooth? That counted double. Because unlike a bullet, a bad tooth didn't come with fanfare. It just sat there, silent, waiting to ruin you. You don't notch your saddle. You just ride. Quiet. Upright. Alive. The plains roll on. The sun dips low. And your jaw, what's left of it, holds strong. Dust kicks up behind you as the trail narrows between 2 ridge lines, and the wind carries that fine, chalky grit into your mouth. Once upon a time, say 2 weeks ago, you'd have flinched, clamped your jaw shut, and cursed your luck. Now, you spit once, roll your jaw, and ride on. You've gotten used to the gap. It's not just physical. Sure, the space where your molar used to live is still a little tender, and chewing certain things, anything too crunchy, too cold, too alive, takes patience. But the real change? It's mental. You're not bracing for pain anymore. You're adjusting. You're adapting. Which is what cowboys do. The land doesn't give you breaks. Neither does your body. So you find new ways to ride. New ways to live. The trail curves south through a stretch of pale desert grassland, the kind that sways like it remembers being ocean waves. You pass an old telegraph pole leaning like it's given up trying to stay upright. Far in the distance, a solitary tree stands beside a dry creek bed, its limbs twisted like it's been listening to ghosts for too long. You ride with the crew in an easy silence. The sun's soft today. Not gentle, but tolerable. Your horse knows the rhythm by now, and you let it lead, hands light on the reins. Eventually, you hear Hank snort behind you. You know, he says, I once had a molar bust during a poker game in Santa Fe. Right in the middle of bluffing a man with 4 aces. You turn in your saddle. What did you do? Kept bluffing. Told him my jaw cracked from grinning too hard. Jesse laughs. Did it work? Hank grins. Man folded. I won the pot. Then passed out in the alley. You shake your head. You ever get it fixed? Not really. Just drank until I forgot which side it was on. Cookie, riding up from behind, mutters, That explains a lot. And just like that, the tension breaks. The pain, the memories, the ghost of the fever, it all lifts. Becomes part of the story. Just another tale passed between men trying to keep their minds from calcifying like their bones. You stop to water the horses mid-afternoon near a narrow stream that cuts through the sand like a vein. You kneel, splash your face, and drink. No sting. No metallic tang. No blood. You lean back and smile. Better? Jesse asks. You nod. Finally. He tosses you a dried apple from his saddlebag. You eye it warily. He shrugs. Call it a test. You take a bite. It's crisp. Tart. The kind of food that makes your jaw remember what it went through. But this time, you chew it all the way through. No panic. No spike of pain. Just a quiet, echoing throb like the body saying, We good? You nod to yourself. Yeah. We're good. Later, around the fire, Cookie hands out tin plates of stew, heavy on beans, light on meat, and thick enough to patch a barn wall. You eat without wincing. Without fear. And that, more than anything else, feels like victory. Here's your historical side note for tonight. By 1873, dentistry was starting to evolve. But out here, that meant nothing. You were more likely to see a farrier with pliers than a trained dentist. Dental pain was one of the top reasons cowboys drank so heavily, according to some frontier diaries. Not to escape heartache, but to escape joy. And historians still argue whether whiskey prolonged cowboy lives, or just made them forget how close to death they actually were. You sit by the fire long after the others drift to their bedrolls. The stars above are brighter now. Sharper. Maybe it's the pain fading. Maybe it's you changing. You reach up, press your fingers gently to your cheek. Nothing. No throb. No twitch. Just warm skin and a steady heartbeat. The tooth is gone. The wound is healing. And you? You've never been more present. That one molar took more from you than any outlaw ever could. But it gave something back, too. A kind of clarity. You lie back in your bedroll, fold your hands on your chest, and close your eyes as the fire crackles beside you. You're not the same man who first winced at dawn a dozen days ago. You're 1 molar less. But 10 scars wiser. You ride with the morning light in your eyes and a soft ache in your jaw that's more like a memory than a warning. The trail ahead is long, curving like a lazy snake through sunburned hills and patches of mesquite. The land is open, rolling, always just out of reach, just like the future. But today, for the first time, you don't dread what's coming. You welcome it. There's something about pain, real pain, that resets the way a man sees the world. Things you once took for granted now feel like gifts. The breeze against your cheek, the warmth of black coffee that doesn't burn raw nerves, a simple piece of jerky chewed without strategy or fear. Your saddle creaks under you, familiar and forgiving. The rhythm of the ride seeps into your bones like music. The others ride quietly too, each man lost in his own world, but tethered together by the kind of trust only built through shared distance, shared dust, and quiet acts of waiting. You glance toward Jesse. He's rolling a toothpick between his lips, like he's doing it in solidarity. Hank, a few paces back, hums a song with no words, just a low cowboy drone that rises and falls with the sway of the horses. Cookie rides ahead of the pack today. He hasn't said much since breakfast, which usually means he's thinking. That, or he's composing another terrible stew recipe in his head. Either way, you're grateful for the silence. By midday, the land flattens out again, and the sun starts to bear down like it's got something to prove. You pass a dry creek bed, then a scattering of wagon ruts half swallowed by time. An old milestone juts from the dirt, just a splinter of wood with half the numbers carved away. You dismount at the next rest spot, brush your fingers along your jaw, and press lightly where the stitches once were. Gone. No scabs. No bleeding. Just a smooth patch of gum, and the strange sensation of absence. Not painful. Not even uncomfortable. Just missing. Like something left that was never supposed to be permanent in the first place. You reach into your saddlebag, pull out the wrapped cloth again, and unfold it carefully. The tooth. Or the biggest piece of it. Still tucked away like a relic. You stare at it for a while, then rise and walk to the edge of the bluff where the land drops off into a sweeping valley. The wind tugs at your coat. A hawk circles above. You take a breath. Then toss the tooth. It spins once in the air, white, cracked, sharp, and disappears into the grass below. Gone. But not forgotten. You return to camp lighter. Not just in body, but in spirit. That tooth had become a symbol of fear, of fever, of helplessness. But now it's part of the trail behind you. Part of the dust. That night, the fire feels warmer. Closer. The stew is edible, the stories are longer, and the laughter comes quicker. You join in. Freely. Without clutching your jaw. Jesse leans in after one good joke and grins. Glad to see you back, full voice and all. You nod. Glad to be back. And you mean it. Here's a bit of overlooked frontier trivia. Some cowboys believed in burying a bad tooth on a full moon, said it would take the pain with it and stop the ghost of the ache from haunting your dreams. Others more practical, just threw the tooth into the fire. Either way, it wasn't about where the tooth went. It was about claiming victory over something that nearly claimed them. You lie back beside the dying fire, hands laced behind your head, eyes tracing the same constellations you stared at when the fever had you tight in its grip. Only this time, you're not praying for it to end. You're thankful it's over. And tomorrow, you ride. With nothing left behind but a scar and a story. The sun crawls into the sky like it's had one too many drinks the night before, slow, squinting, a little bit angry. You, on the other hand, wake up clear-headed. Not well-rested, maybe, but steady. Solid. Like you've finally caught up to yourself after lagging behind for a week of fever, rot, and stubborn refusal to die. You sit up, rub your jaw. Nothing. No sharpness. No pounding. Just a faint pull when you stretch your mouth too wide, like an old scar stretching under skin. You run your tongue along your gums, not out of habit anymore, but curiosity. It's really gone. Not just the tooth, but the fear. The trail ahead feels different. Not easier, not safer, but less like something waiting to hurt you. More like a path you get to choose to ride. The crew rolls out around mid-morning, the sun already pushing heat into your collars. You ride south toward a town marked only on half the maps, Whitley's Fork. Word is, there's a rail station, a blacksmith who doubles as a dentist, and a saloon with a piano player who only knows 2 songs and insists on playing both at the same time. You almost look forward to it. Around noon, Jesse rides up alongside you, chewing on a blade of grass. You thinking of getting that hole patched up when we hit town? You glance over. You mean a fake tooth? Yeah. Porcelain, gold, or whatever material they've decided is fashionable to wedge in your face these days. You consider it. It's tempting. Real tempting. A full smile again. No missing space when you talk or chew. No weird whistling sound when you say certain words. But you shake your head. Maybe someday, you say. But for now, I'll keep the gap. Badge of honor? No, you say. More like a bookmark. He doesn't ask what you mean. He doesn't have to. There's a silence between you, comfortable, earned. The kind of silence only people who've seen the other side of something get to share. You arrive in Whitley's Fork late afternoon. It's a squat little place, buildings sun-baked and wood-warped, with more dogs than people. The main street's dusty but active. Kids running past the post office. A drunk man chasing his own hat. A woman sweeping the same patch of porch boards like she's waiting for something to happen. You dismount, tie your horse, and stretch. Your knees crack. Your back aches. But your jaw? Steady. You head for the general store first. Pick up more clove bark, some dried apples, a new tin cup to replace the one that went flying back during the worst of it. Cookie grabs a can of tomatoes and a tin of something labeled meat product best guess. At the edge of town, you spot a faded sign. Whitley Dental, teeth pulled, filled, or forgotten. You stand there for a long moment. Not going in. Just looking. Then you turn and head toward the saloon instead. Inside, the piano man's playing exactly the way you expected, badly. 2 melodies at once, like he's in an argument with himself and losing both sides. Jesse orders whiskey. You ask for water. The bartender gives you a long look but doesn't argue. You sip it slow. Swish it around. No burn. You swallow. Clean. That night you sleep in a real bed, in a room with a door that latches and windows that don't flap like wings in the wind. The mattress is lumpy, the sheets scratchy, but you sleep like a man who earned the right. And for the first time in days, you don't dream about knives or pliers or bleeding into the dirt. You dream about riding. That's all. Just riding. Sun on your shoulders. Hoofbeats beneath you. No pain. No ghosts. Just motion. Here's your curious little historical nod before bed. Some cowboys believe that when a man lost a tooth on the trail, he should ride exactly 13 miles before stopping again. Supposedly it, confused, the pain spirits, left them wandering in the dust. Historians laugh it off, of course. But after what you've been through, you're not laughing. You're just glad to be on the other side. You roll over in the creaky bed, pull the blanket to your chin, and breathe deep. Your tooth is gone. Your story isn't. And tomorrow? You ride again. The morning sun pours through the warped window slats like melted gold, painting your blanket in warm stripes. For a long time, you just lie there, listening to the clatter of hooves outside, the distant whistle of the train rolling into Whitley's Fork, and the occasional thud of someone tripping over their own boots in the hallway. You stretch cautiously. Every part of your body complains, shoulders, hips, lower back, but your jaw, quiet, like a healed cut under an old shirt. Still there, but no longer a threat. You sit up slowly, savoring the weight of the silence inside your own head. No more pulsing under your cheekbone. No more phantom knives behind your eye. Just the gentle hum of being okay. And let me tell you, okay is sacred out here. You wash up at the basin, splash your face with cool water, and watch yourself in the cracked mirror. There you are. Thinner, maybe. Dustier, certainly. A little hollow on the right side where the molar once ruled like a tyrant king. But alive. And somehow clearer. You step out into the street, saddle creaking under your arm, boots squelching slightly in last night's mud. The town's already buzzing. Kids racing sticks down the street. A woman hollering about eggs. Someone hammering something unnecessarily hard against something else that sounds equally unforgiving. Normal. Blessedly normal. You find the others near the stables, sipping weak coffee and trading lies. Cookie waves you over with his tin cup, which may or may not still contain actual coffee. Thought you'd sleep till winter, he says. Thought about it, you mutter. Jesse passes you a chunk of honey biscuit. Try this. Town baker's got a magic touch. You take it. Soft, sweet, sticky. And best of all, chewable. You bite down gently. No pain. You smile, really smile, and Jesse sees it. That's a man who just remembered how to live, he says. You nod. Something like that. By noon, you've resupplied, repacked, and remounted. The trail's calling again, not loudly, not urgently. Just steady. like a friend waiting patiently on the horizon. But before you leave, you do one last thing. You stop by the post office. The clerk barely looks up when you ask for paper and pencil. He hands it over like he's seen one too many cowboys writing letters they won't send. But you write yours anyway. To May. You keep it short. I made it. The fever broke. You saved my life. Thank you? The fool with the tooth. You hand it over, pay the postage, and walk out without waiting for approval. If she gets it, great. If not, doesn't matter. The words are out there now. Floating down the line. Proof that someone remembered. You ride out with the wind at your back and dust under your boots. The plains open wide again, like a book you've already read half of but only just started to understand. The ache never quite leaves. Not completely. Even now, as the miles roll beneath you, there's a tightness in your jaw when the air gets cold or the trail gets rough. A little ghost tapping on the inside of your cheek, reminding you what it costs to survive. But you don't fear it anymore. You carry it. Not as a wound, but as a lesson. Here's a lesser-known frontier fact. Some cowboys, after surviving illness or injury, would braid a thread of horsehair into their saddle straps, one for each close call. Not for luck, not for vanity. Just as a quiet reminder that death doesn't always come with thunder. Sometimes it starts with a tooth. You finger the rawhide edge of your saddle, think about weaving one in later. Not now. But maybe soon. For now, the trail stretches ahead. The horses fall into step. And you, one molar short, one truth wiser, ride into the rest of your story. The trail turns rocky by afternoon, winding through a stretch of land where the wind whistles between red stones like it's trying to say something you'll never quite catch. The horses pick their way carefully, hooves clinking on loose shale. You lean forward in the saddle, giving your mount room to move, jaw tight, not from pain, but focus. It's strange. You used to ride with pain as a companion. For days, every hoofbeat vibrated through your jaw like a nail being tapped into your skull. Now, the absence of pain feels foreign. Like riding without your shadow. You should be relieved. And you are. But you also realize how much the pain defined you, shaped your decisions, changed your pace, slowed your breath. It demanded attention like a fire in a quiet room. And now that it's gone, you're relearning how to exist without it. You stop at a high ridge where the land opens up wide below. Hills roll on for miles. You dismount, stretch, and wander a few paces to a smooth stone ledge. The wind is stronger up here, cooler. Smells like pine and iron. You sit. And just breathe. Jesse joins you after a minute, plopping down nearby, pulling off his gloves. You remember the start of this ride? He asks, voice low. You nod. Hard to forget. You were ghost white. Looked like your soul was trying to escape through your cheek. You chuckle. Felt like it. You ever think it'd kill you? You pause. Yeah, you say. More than once. There's a long silence after that. Jesse doesn't press. Because out here, you don't need to explain survival. You just need to own it. You both sit in silence for a while, watching clouds drift like smoke across the horizon. Then he says, almost too casually, You know, I had a brother. Died from a tooth. You glance over. Didn't talk about it much. He adds, We were on the same drive, 2 years back. He started complaining one day. Said his jaw hurt. Then he stopped eating. Then he stopped talking. By the time we got to town, he was gone. You nod, the words heavy between you. It happens, he says. Too often. Too quiet. You want to say something, anything, but what could you say? I'm sorry. Me too. Instead, you reach into your pocket and pull out the little tin Jesse gave you back in Milner's Crossing. The one with the clove oil and folded note. You hold it up. Still carry this. You say. He nods once. Good. You should. Because now you both know, when pain comes again, and it will, you'll be ready. And here's your strange but true historical aside to tuck into your trail journal. Some old-timers used to say you could predict toothaches based on the way cattle behaved. If a steer went wild in the middle of a calm day, someone in the crew was bound to come down with a burning jaw or infected gums. Historians laugh it off, but writers didn't. Out here, when you lived in your body like it was your only shelter, everything was a sign. You mount back up and descend the ridge slowly. By the time you reach the flat, the land opens again, so wide it feels like it might swallow the sky. You ride in silence, chewing on the truth. That the worst part of pain isn't always the pain itself. It's the waiting, the wondering, the what if it comes back. But today it doesn't. You camp that night near a cold spring, the stars scattered above like bits of broken glass, and for once, no one tells a story around the fire. You just sit, together, alive, healed, and not afraid to feel it. Morning greets you with gold across your blanket, and the sound of hooves stamping near the waterline. Your horse is restless, sensing the shift in season, or maybe just feeling the same thing you are, that this trail is coming to a close. Not the ride. That never really ends. But this part, the part that started with a sharp throb in your jaw and nearly ended with your name carved into a wooden marker beside a fever-drenched bedroll. You stretch slowly. Your body protests, but your jaw stays quiet. You test it, gingerly at first, working it side to side, up and down, humming low to see if the vibration stirs any old ghosts. Nothing. Just the hollow where the molar once ruled. You've learned to speak around it now. Learn to chew on the left. Learn to live with the memory without letting it dictate your every move. That's what healing really is, isn't it? Not forgetting. Just moving forward without flinching. The others pack up without fuss. Cookie's even whistling, off-key, but earnestly. Jesse tightens his cinch, gives you a quick nod. Hank mutters about coffee grounds tasting like river mud, which, to be fair, they probably do. You mount up easy. And ride. The day is warm and clear. Not too hot. Wind behind you. Trails soft under the hooves. And for the first time since the fever broke, you feel whole again. The miles pass in silence, the kind that speaks louder than any words. You think about May, the woman who held your head while the knife did its work. About Josiah and his mismatched pliers. About the bark chews, the pain powder, the stitched flesh, the blood in the dirt. You think about how close you came. How easy it would have been to say nothing. To ride another day. Another mile. And drop dead in the saddle from something nobody could see. That's the thing about pain. It hides. It waits. And then it pounces. You ride into the last town of the line by dusk. Just a waypoint, 3 buildings, 1 general store, a rail spur, and a well with a crank that squeals like it's being tickled by ghosts. You stop there. Dismount. Draw up a tin of cool, clean water. And drink. Not in caution, but in gratitude. You finish it slow, let it rinse every memory out of your mouth. Then you pour the last of it over your hands and face, and lean back against the post. You've made it. And here, at the edge of the trail, your final piece of strange cowboy history. Some say that if a man survives a brutal toothache on the frontier, the land marks him. Not with scars. Not with songs. But with luck. It's said those who survive the invisible pains ride longer, draw faster, laugh louder. Because they know the truth most never do. That life tries to kill you quietly, long before the bullets ever come. And if you can outlast that, well, you've already won. You ride out one last time that evening, toward a sun dropping like a golden coin into a slot machine sky. You're still missing a tooth. Still carrying the story. But now, you're free. You survived. You healed. And you'll never take that for granted again. The ride slows now. The hooves grow quieter. The air softer. Let it all settle. Let your shoulders drop, your breath deepen, your hands relax in your lap or under the blanket, wherever you're resting now. You've come a long way, through dust and fire, fever and silence. You rode through the worst of it. when even sleep hurt and every swallow reminded you that survival doesn't always announce itself with trumpets. Sometimes it arrives like a woman with a boiled knife and kind eyes, or a friend with clove bark in his pocket, or a stranger offering powder that tastes like death and works like mercy. You did it. You outlasted something that almost took you. And now, you're here. Right here. The campfire's down to embers. The sky above is brushed in silver. The wind has settled. The horses are still. And the land, for the first time in what feels like forever, isn't asking anything of you. It's just holding you. Let that be enough. You don't need to fix anything right now. Don't need to plan the next ride. The trail can wait. The world can wait. Because tonight you rest. Tonight you sleep as a man who faced pain and said, "Not today!" As a rider who lost a piece of himself and came out stronger. As someone who knows, deep down, that the worst things in life often arrive small, quiet, and unnoticed, until they demand everything. But you didn't give in. You endured. And now it's time to rest. Let your jaw loosen. Let your shoulders sink. Let your breath move like the wind across an open plain, slow, soft, steady. You're safe now. You're home, even if the fire's just a glow and the sky is stretching out forever. There's nothing left to fear tonight. Only peace. Only breath. Only the quiet company of the stars. Sleep, Cowboy. You earned it. Hey guys. Thank you so much for being here. Your support means a lot and I look forward to bringing you new topics soon. Stay kind, stay inspired, and I'll see you